Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Market Mindset. Today, it's my pleasure to be speaking with Desert Mountain Energy. And just for those of you that are new, DME is a resource company actively engaged in exploration and development of helium and rare earth gas properties in the American Southwest, with substantial land holdings at the Holbrook Helium Project in Holbrook, Arizona. It's always a pleasure to speaking with CEO Robert Rohlfing. Listen, it's been I like to kind of joke, an overnight success in 20 years in the making. Maybe you can kind of give us through the very long term for you working on this project, but for someone like myself and our subscribers, just a couple of years and such growth in the last couple of years.
Well, thank you, Andrew. Yeah, you got to remember that for the folks who are just tuning in for the first time, I started in 1999 doing the base geology for this, and it's been over a number of years. And then 2008, I started doing an initial design for a solar-powered helium extraction plant. Fast forward that to approximately two and a half years ago, when we drilled the first two wells, and they were wildcats. We were successful with that. Then we had to do financings, and Don and Mosher and myself took over for management of the corporation. And since then, we have drilled since June of 2020. We have drilled a total of 8 wells, 5 of which were rank wildcats, and there's 3 developmental or step out wells, even though they qualify as a wildcat because they're a mile apart. But this is a previously unknown, unproduced area on each one of these. So that's the drilling aspect and completing the wells. Fast forward to having to start ordering a plant to actually extract that, and the additional problems that combination of problems and challenges that you have, because there is no infrastructure whatsoever to support a plant. So we had to build a plant that would run on solar. Well, we're in the American Southwest. We're in Arizona. You got sunshine. Why not use this? The other thing about that, there's a lot of nuances to this. Instead of building some large plant that has to have 150 million cubic foot a day throughput, like some of the other large majors have built, to try to put on top of a pipeline, it's totally different. You're dealing with different types of rock, different types of sources for it, different types and amounts of gas that you can even run, totally different gas composition. Most of the other helium everywhere else that's produced is produced in basically a hydrocarbon environment. And you just get paid, if you get paid, it's just a small credit for your natural gas or your NGLs. Where what we're doing is we are the first company that not only has built a solar powered plant, we're also the first company to be a fully vertically integrated. We started out at grassroots exploration, moved into setting it up for production, putting this on, and now with the plant that we've taken possession of and we're finalizing stuff on, that will be going into operation very shortly. So it's a whole lot. There's a whole lot of years compressed into just a couple years to bring all that planning together.
All the hard work you've done previously, I like to put people into kind of a mindset of, in really the last 2.5 years, it's gone from 20 cents to roughly $293. That's that's an incredible movement in market price. So every once in a while, and once again, during COVID, during a pandemic, during a supply chain crisis, having to deal with all those issues that come up as well. Whenever people do get a little antsy and they say, oh, well, what's taking so long with the plant? What's taking so long with this? People can get very impatient, as they do on some forums or on phone calls, is that the speed at which this has come together is actually extremely fast, and the market has recognized it. And now we're at what I like to kind of say, this critical, pivotal part of where it's not just experimental or R&D or can it be done? It's now that execution phase that we're at now, which is very exciting, but also makes people very prickly and impatient because it's, okay, tell me about the plant. Tell me how it's different. Tell me why. Tell me this. Tell me what the numbers are. And I thought if we approach this conversation, we take it in those kind of chunks and remind people that it took you a long while to get here. It's been very fast in the last couple of years, but we're at a point now where execution is key. And whatever we can do today, solving any issues, any problems, any hiccups, will solve any number of ones that come down the line. So maybe you could kind of talk about the plant, why it differs from, as you mentioned, say if you bought, off the shelf or off the rack, Air Liquide type of thing, where someone would say, well, you could just buy that one, install it, and just start pumping. Let's go. Remind people why you've taken this approach, because it's all part of the business plan.
I'll give you as an example, and I won't mention the companies involved. People can do their own homework and figure it out. There have been a number of companies that have gone out, drilled wells, brought in a quote off the shelf from one of the major people, and they have gone in and in on average, less than 6 weeks, watered out a great well. And the problem with it is people think that this is just a gas. Well, you just poke a hole in the ground and it's like a straw, and you just don't suck it out and do this, and you plug in the plant and it's plug and play. It's not the way it works. It's not the way nature works, and especially with the way helium behaves. It's not attracted to anything, and that's why one of the uses for it in for leak detection and in purging of rocket engines and all the lines, because it doesn't react with anything. It really doesn't. And it's not attracted to water. You can shove enough water through a formation and you can get a little bit of it to follow it, depending on heat, time, pressure, and all a number of issues there. But it's not like oil. And I like to try to explain this to folks. This is not like taking the hunting line in Oklahoma and trying to drill a horizontal well through it. And then all you have to do is put in a bigger downhole pump and move 70,000 barrels of water a day, literally. And you're going to move water for 30 days before you will get a showing of oil and gas. And then once you get it going, then the oil and gas. And what it happens is you're lowering, the actual term is you lower the interstitial pore pressure. So it allows the oil and gas to come out of the individual vugs and type stuff in limestones or in sand and flow with the water. Problem is, as soon as you stop for a yearly production or maintenance on the pump, as soon as you stop that, you have to go back into an ever increasing amount of time that you have to move water before you get oil and gas to come. The difference between dealing with helium in a nitrogen environment, it's not attracted to it. It's stable. The more water you move, you will occlude or just plain stop the production. And that's where you can't just open the valve and let her rip. It does not work that way. And so when we start bringing these wells online, and people and they pontificate that they know it all. Well, this is so and so, and this is this, and they say that because this happens to oil and gas. That is pure bovine scatology. It's not the way it works. Because if you do that, I guarantee you will ruin a well. And I'm not going to have spent millions of dollars to have a plant and $1 million on average costs on a well to go out and blow it down and screw it up. Why? Because I'm trying to develop a resource in these wells that will run for hopefully a minimum of 15 years. I may start them out slower, and depending on how it works, we have to understand the downhole, quote, health of the well. And you don't do that by just opening a valve. Now that's the geologic well side of it. The other thing is about the plant. We have designed a plant that if this plant was to be equivalent to other plants out there that would run totally on natural gas, or if you have to put them into a power grid or something like that, it would, the closest thing that anybody else had to it was another company. And the power, just the kilowatt hour per day would have been approximately 2,870 kilowatts per day. This plant starts up with generators off of CNG initially. And that's just because the draw of all the electric motors, all the three-phase and everything else that starts up, is very, very heavy draw. Once it's running, then that flips back over to the solar. And the kilowatt rate is only 258 kilowatts.
That's huge, yeah.
It's like the other thing that gets, by using solar, we're not locked into variable pricing on natural gas. We're not locked into wildly fluctuating electric prices.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you look what happened even in Texas 2 years ago, where they had, in the winter, they had the ice storms and everything else. You know, there are some power companies that, you know, people got their bills and their normal bill was $150, $200, and they got a $1,500 to $1,800 bill for 1 month.
Yeah.
Can you imagine trying to run a plant, a business like that? There's a lot of businesses. They went upside down. A lot of people went beacon. So by designing a plant that, from my original design, rough design in 2008 to now, we lowered the kilowatt needs by 55%. That's huge.
Yeah.
The other thing about having solar, we're locked in on our fixed costs for years and years and years and years and years. So it's just the yearly minor maintenance after you do that, and the batteries, and it's just a normal. So it takes your kilowatts cents per kilowatt hour from, if we were on the local, if we could, number one, get across all of the variations of indigenous peoples, private, state, federal lands, and have gotten a power line run in less than 2 years. Probably would have been hard to do. Just trying to get the right-of-ways would not have happened. But if you had, we would be stuck with paying approximately 14.98 cents per kilowatt hour. Our actual operational costs are 0.8 of 1 cent.
Yeah.